Roger Stone, thank you so much for joining us, my friend.
Alex, it's great to be back on InfoWars. Let me say at the top, I know you understand there are certain topics that I cannot address, and I don't intend to do so today, but I am permitted to talk about American politics and the current state of affairs. And because I worked for 3 Republican presidents, because I'm a veteran of 10 Republican presidential campaigns, I do think I bring some historic perspective to the current impeachment saga going on in Washington. Let me say at the top, I stand 100% with President Donald Trump. The reason they wish to remove him is because he is a disruptor, because he has interrupted their march to globalism. The two-party duopoly was taking this country over a cliff. And who came forward, most improbably, but a New York billionaire with cojones the size of basketballs, with a reform agenda which by any objective analysis has worked. We have a boom economy. We are redoing our trade agreements. He is struggling to seal our border. He is restoring the basic values on which this country was founded. That's why they want to get rid of him.
Roger, there's so many things here to tackle, so many things that you're gracious enough to spend some time with us, but you were the former Nixon aide who experienced the 1974 impeachment drama, and you can obviously offer advice to Trump on what he's going through and what's unfolding, and this coup that's now out in the open, and the deep staters still continuing it now with the latest Ukraine hoax. What is your advice to President Trump on October 25th, 2019?
Well, first of all, let us analyze the situation, because I did have a front row seat during the Nixon impeachment. I also had a front row seat during the Clinton impeachment. And I must say, what is going on now in Washington is completely unlike either one of those processes. Now, I was one who criticized House Republicans for impeaching Bill Clinton over an inappropriate relationship with an intern. I thought it was a mistake. It turned out to be an enormous political mistake. But the truncated time frame here is the important thing to recognize. It took 2 years for the then dominant only media, the mainstream media, to beat on President Richard Nixon before they could mount an effort for impeachment. He had just won the largest landslide in American political history, but you had a monolithic media, ABC, NBC, CBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, and in those days, very popular and powerful news magazines like Newsweek and Time. Still, it took a relentless tsunami of bad news before the situation in the country was such that President Nixon had lost his base of support in the country and no longer had a governing coalition. At that point, his support among both House and Senate Republicans collapsed, and he resigned for the good of the country. Had he not resigned, he clearly would have been convicted in the Senate. But there's one important distinction. Nixon was, unfortunately, guilty of a crime. He didn't know about the Watergate break-in in advance, as that lunatic Nick Ackerman keeps saying on MSNBC with Ari Melber. That is false. There is no evidence or proof to that extent, but he did get sucked into the cover-up by John Dean. And therefore, he was impeached because he was guilty of a crime. Bill Clinton was impeached, but not convicted. I think he should have been impeached for selling military and missile targeting secrets to the Chinese in return for campaign contributions, and not, which is treasonous, but not because of his dalliance with Monica Lewinsky. By the way, Republicans lost seats in the next congressional election. That was a complete misfire. But in both cases, in the case of both Nixon and in the case of Clinton, there was due process. There was an open, completely transparent process. You got critical mass for Nixon's removal in 1974. The Republicans never reached critical mass in terms of public support in the Clinton impeachment. This process is quite different. I think that those who sit back and say, well, the House may impeach the president, but surely the Republican Senate will never convict him, I think are being naive. The president is in for an incredible fight because his critics, those in the mainstream media and their handmaidens in the two-party duopoly, are hoping that this tsunami of attacks on him day after day, night after night, will wear his support down in the states where there are wobbly Republican senators so they feel comfortable voting for his removal, despite the fact that he has committed no crime. I have seen no evidence of a crime. The American people have not seen any evidence of a crime. So this proceeding is very different than those that have gone before. In terms of what I would do right now if I were him, he has had an incredible fundraising juggernaut for his reelection campaign. Last time I looked, he had $400 million. He's on his way to $500 million. He's outraising all of the Democrats, pulled more money out of California, I think, than all the Democrats combined. I would begin utilizing that money to advertise both digitally and on radio and on broadcast media in those states where there are Republican senators who may be thinking about joining this lynch mob. As long as the president remains more popular in those states than those individual senators, they will be loath to cast a vote against the president, particularly based on the thinnest reed that we have seen so far.
From your mouth to Trump and the rest of the world's ears, I know you've got to be careful about the different areas that you're even able to get into, but just in general, the whole impeachment and Trump coming out and saying Obama engaged in treason for his activities against Trump. And I think that shows Trump is going to war now. I mean, I think we're about to see the counterpunching Tyrannosaurus Rex Godzilla attack Tokyo. Is that a good prediction?
Well, I'm not going to speak specifically about today's news, but I will say this. The Trump I know is a brawler. I read a fake news story the other day that said that Trump would resign in return for a pledge that he not be prosecuted for non-existent crimes.
Hold that. That's so big. Hold that till we go to break, because that's a huge answer. The people want to have you flesh that out when we come back, Roger. And there's so many points I want to get to. Roger Stone is here. Has the withdrawal of our troops from Syria helped or hurt the president? Again, what advice would you give the president on all these issues? What do you think of the House Republicans' effort to crush the impeachment hearings, to crash into it? Donald Trump Jr., will Hillary run? So much more with Roger Stone exclusively here. Where's Roger Stone been? We're not allowed to tell you. There's just so much free speech in America. Well, it's been 4+ months since Roger's done any interviews. And I got to tell you, distance makes the heart grow fond. I've always liked Roger. He's a smart guy, funny guy, incredible history he knows. An encyclopedia when it comes to politics, and just no Roger Stone. But here he is with us, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, what a story behind the scenes, but we can't get into that. Roger, that cliffhanger there, we're hearing by former building managers and people, just resign, Trump, and everything will be all right. And then CNN hosts go, yes, I'm sure a deal can be made where we'll let you, be sent to an island somewhere. So the deep state's telegraphing, hey, it's time to give up. I guess kind of like John Paul Jones, the founder of the U.S. Navy, was attacking a British ship 3 times his size, and his ship was sinking on fire. And they said, hey, give up. And he said, I've only begun to fight. He ended up taking their ship, and then his sunk, but he still took theirs. So he said, I've only begun to fight. So Roger Stone's here. He's only begun to fight. What about Trump? You know him better than probably anybody in politics, 40+ years. Used to be his wingman. Will Trump resign? What do you expect him to do under this pressure? He seems to be thriving under it.
Yeah, I think there's zero chance that he will resign. I think that's wishful thinking by some in the political establishment. Looking at a headline here for Mediate, Roger Stone set to violate gag order and break silence to talk impeachment. I will do nothing here today to break the gag order of the court. We're talking about issues that are completely unrelated to me or my case. In this case, Donald Trump, as I have said here many times, is a brawler. He has resources. He has the bully pulpit. One of the things I think that is hurting him is that you have a monolithic mainstream media, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and you have the slow turn of Fox. Listening to Fox during daytime hours, is just like listening to CNN. There is just an avalanche of disinformation. Their nighttime lineup can't be beat. Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham. I think this is the prime source for the American people who want to learn the truth about what's going on in Washington and in politics. But the president still has the bully pulpit. He still can command coverage. And he is, I think, the greatest counterpuncher in American politics.
Looking at the way the impeachment's being done, the polls show it's backfiring. I know you can speak to those as a real expert, but just the optics of secret hearings that don't follow the normal law and procedure in the House on impeachment, and then the transcripts do come out and Schiff's telling people what to say. I know you can't even get into him. I mean, it's in fact, let me just ask you this. What do you make of the way the proceedings are being done?
Well, I think the American people like transparency. They want due process. They'd like to know all the facts. Beyond that, I'm not going to address it. I do think it's interesting the way Donald Trump Jr. has emerged as an incredibly effective advocate for his father. I saw him on with Sean Hannity the other night, and I rated him a 10 out of 10. I mean, first of all, he clearly has an affinity for politics. He's deeply committed to his father's agenda. I think he's the single most articulate spokesman for the America First policies of this president. He's really come into his own, and I think he's going to be a major voice in this fight. The others are obvious: Matt Gaetz, Mark Meadows, Lee Zeldin, Jim Jordan. These people would normally just be backbenchers among House Republicans, but they are emerging as leaders. So it is fascinating to watch, but I think it also affects our politics across the board. In other words, this entire question of Ukraine has not only put the president under fire, but I think it has badly damaged the candidacy of Joe Biden. Now, in truth, the Democratic establishment does not want Biden to be their nominee. While they may have great affection for him for past service, none of them think he is a strong candidate. I don't think he can hold together the party's corporate wing and their growingly powerful socialist wing. And they need a candidate who can do that. I have watched terrific interviews with Doug Schoen and Mark Penn, who I think are two of the smartest guys I know in American politics. Both guys I've known for 30 plus years. And they both believe that Hillary is likely to run. Now, before people scoff, they should recognize that there is a deep well of support for Hillary Clinton within the Democratic Party and among Democratic primary voters, that she could bridge that gap between the corporate wing and the socialist wing, that the Clinton fundraising machine is certainly intact, and there is definitely fatigue regarding Joe Biden. She could win a multi-candidate race with 25% of the vote. She could certainly win in Iowa, in New Hampshire. Whether she has the physical stamina for a campaign, whether the same issues that defeated her last time would rise to defeat her this time, is, I think, a reasonable question. But I don't think she's out of it. I think she may yet run. And if she does, she should not be underestimated. On the other hand, I do think President Trump would beat her again, probably a little worse than last time. But only time will tell.
Roger, my head is just swimming here with questions I want to get into. When we come back, you began to get into it, but we know the president is either watching this right now or will be watching it later. And obviously, a lot of folks have gone to great lengths to cut you off from the president because he respects your countenance so much. That's been in the news. You know, General Kelly, others sought to keep you and I from being able to communicate with the president because he resonates with the common sense things that we talk about. So when we come back, I'd like you to really brief the president as much as you can, recapping some of what you said, but also getting into just how you called it on Fiona Hill, how you called it on Ambassador William Taylor 2 years ago on record on this broadcast and on the War Room that you hosted. I mean, we now live in a point where this man can't even host shows here, and that's his business. His life was a talk show host. For that, a Fox pundit paid there. Roger Stone here, an American fighting for all of us, and I always liked Roger. But then, you know, they talk about how he's a villain and all this stuff. I never saw any evidence of that. Everything he ever said was true, because truth is what's powerful. But now that he's in the crucible, and now that he is the man in the arena, he's the man in the arena. I just really respect him and admire him and feel for him because let me tell you, we're all Roger Stone now. He is the modern Spartacus. We'll be right back. Stay with us.